Hello students, my name is Dr. Alice Mani. I will be conducting lessons on Business Law, course 306. I am the resource person for Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education. I will be imparting lessons on business law. This is part of the BBA Rural Management course. This course is divided into 4 units. You will have 16 modules covering the syllabus. This unit, that is chapter 3 titled Sale of Goods Act 1930, will be covered in 4 modules. The first module will look at the basic features of the Sale of Goods Act 1930 and types of goods. The second module will cover conditions and warranties. The third module will cover the rights of an unpaid seller. The fourth and last module will cover duties of the buyer. We will cover one module of this third unit, which is the basic features of Sale of Goods Act and types of goods in this video. So let us go ahead and understand the topic in details. I have structured this lesson in the following way. This lesson will cover 4 broad areas. The first will be an introduction to Sale of Goods Act. Second, the essential features of Sale of Goods Act. Third, distinction between sale and agreement to sale. And fourth, the type of goods. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand the introduction to Sale of Goods Act, the basic features of Sale of Goods Act, distinction between sale and agreement to sale, and types of goods. Thus, in a nutshell, you will get the important aspects about Sale of Goods Act with a detailed explanation about the types of goods. This will be helpful for those who will become entrepreneurs in future or to understand the basic things as consumers. This act is very important to us as we enter into so many transactions as consumers. This module will give us insights about the rights and responsibilities as a buyer, seller, or as a consumer. This will equip us with the basic knowledge to be more alert and responsible in protecting our legal rights as consumers. Moreover, the knowledge about the scope of goods will guide in entering the right transactions and not to get cheated either in the online or offline mode of purchase. So let us understand this topic in details. The contract of Sale of Goods Act is governed by the Sale of Goods Act 1930. The Act extends to the whole of India. Till 1930, all the transactions related to the sale of goods was regulated by the Indian Contract Act 1872. A contract for the sale of goods has certain unusual features such as transfer of ownership of the goods, delivery of the goods, rights and duties of the buyer and seller, remedies for breach of contract, conditions and warranties implied under a contract for sale of goods, etc. These unusualities are subjected to the provisions of the Sale of Goods Act 1930. The Act deals with the subject matter of movable property. This Act does not deal with the sale of immovable property. The transactions relating to immovable properties like the sale, lease, gifts, etc. are governed by a separate act known as the Transfer of Property Act 1882. To start with, we have to learn the definition of sale of goods. Section 4, subsection 1 of the Sale of Goods Act defines a contract of sale of goods as a contract whereby the seller transfers or agrees to sell the property in goods to the buyer for a price. In simple terms, the contract of sale of goods is a contract whereby a seller transfers the ownership of goods to the buyer or agrees to transfer it for a price. The agreement of the sale of goods must undergo certain stages and procedures to become a valid contract. Before entering into the contract or finalizing the contract, The parties must check the credibility of the document and finalize it. There is no strict format as to the drafting of the contract of sale. It can be moduled as per the needs and requirements of the parties. There is no legal framework as to the contents of a contract of sale of goods, but the mentioning of certain clauses like makes the contract stronger. Now, let us see the essential conditions for contract of sale of goods. There are some essential conditions to be fulfilled to make it a valid contract. They are two parties or bilateral contract, transfer of property, goods, price, sale, which includes both sale and agreement to sale, and all the essential elements of a valid contract as per the Indian Contract Act 1872. Let us learn these points and understand to avoid mistakes when we buy goods or accept services in our personal or official capacity. The first essential condition is that there must be two distinct parties to a contract of sale, that is, the buyer and seller. In other words, it is a bilateral contract where property in goods has to pass from one party to another, as a person cannot buy his own goods. Let us see the definition of buyer and seller as per the Sale of Goods Act 1930. A seller is defined as per section 2 subsection 13 of the Sale of Goods Act as with a person who sells or agrees to sell goods. Similarly, a buyer is defined as per this section as per section 2 subsection 1 as a buyer means a person who buys or agrees to buy goods. There is an important case decision worth quoting here to see the court's verdict regarding buyer and seller. State of Gujarat versus Ramanlal Company in 1965. A partnership firm was dissolved and the surplus assets, including stock in trade, were divided among the partners in the same firm. It was held that it was not a sale as the parties themselves were the joint owners of the goods and they could not be both buyers and sellers. The second essential element of a valid contract is transfer of property. This condition emphasizes on the transfer of ownership from buyer to seller. A mere transfer or possession of goods cannot be treated as sale. To constitute a contract for sale, the seller must either transfer or agree to transfer the property in the goods to the buyer. The property can be general property or special property. What is the distinction between general and special property? Do you know that? General property means actual ownership and special property means the person has some interest in the goods to the extent of the amount of advance he has made to the owner. Examples of special properties are pledge, goods submitted as security, etc. The subject matter of the contract must necessarily be goods. We will cover the types of goods in this module in a while. So I am going to give you a detailed explanation now. So I am not going to give you a detailed explanation now. Only thing I want to emphasize is that only movable goods are covered in the Sale of Goods Act. The sale of immovable property is not covered under the Sale of Goods Act. As already mentioned in the beginning of this module, sale of immovable property is governed by a separate act known as the Transfer of Property Act 1882. The next essential for sale of goods contract is price. The consideration in a contract of sale has necessarily to be money, that is the legal tender money. If for instance goods are offered in exchange for goods, as the consideration for goods, it will not amount to sale. It will be called a barter. You have to remember that consideration can be partly in cash and partly in goods. The next essential condition of Sale of Goods Act is sale includes sale and agreement to sale. In sale, the property in goods is transferred at once to the buyer from the seller. The section 4 subsection 3 of the Act says that where under a contract of sale, the property in the goods is transferred from the seller to the buyer, the contract is then known as sale. This is an absolute sale. For example, in a cash sale, the ownership is immediately transferred. However, in an agreement to sale, the ownership of the property in goods is not transferred immediately. The objective of the agreement is to transfer the goods at a future date, once some conditions in the agreement are satisfied. The section 4 subsection 3 of the Sale of Goods Act defines it as where the transfer of the property in the goods is to take place at a future time or subject to some conditions thereafter to be fulfilled. The contract is called an agreement to sell. For example, on 1st January 2022, Mr. A agrees to sell the car to Mr. B on March 1st, 2022, subject to some conditions. This is an agreement to sell. Thus, sale of goods cover both cash and credit sales to include sale and agreement to sale. The last essential condition of a Sale of Goods Act is that contracts should fulfill all the essential conditions of a valid contract as per the Indian Contract Act 1872. We know that a contract is considered as valid only if it fulfills 10 essential conditions. These conditions are also applicable in the case of Sale of Goods Act also. Now we know that sale and agreement to sale are different. Now we have to see the differences between these two related terms in detail. The first difference is about the transfer of property. Where the property immediately is transferred from seller to buyer, it is called sale. Where the transfer of property in goods is to take place in future from seller to buyer, it is called agreement to sell. The second distinction is about the nature of contract. In a contract of sale, property in goods transfers from seller to buyer immediately. But agreement to sell is an executory contract because the property in goods does not transfer immediately to the buyer. But contract of sale is an executed contract. The third distinction is based on the risk of loss. The general rule is that unless otherwise agreed, the risk of loss prima facie passes with property. This is as per section 26 of the Sale of Goods Act. Thus, in the case of sale, if the goods are destroyed, the loss falls on the buyer, even though the goods may never have come into his possession, because the property in the goods has already passed to the buyer in sale. On the other hand, in case of an agreement to sell, where the ownership in the goods is yet to pass from the seller to the buyer, such loss has to be borne by the seller even though the goods are in the possession of the buyer. The next distinction is about the types of goods. A sale can only be in the case of an existing or specific goods. An agreement to sell is mostly in the case of future and contingent goods, although in some cases it may refer to unascertained existing goods. The next distinction is about the nature of rights. In the case of sale, the buyer will get general rights, and in the case of agreement to sell, the buyer will get particular rights against the property. Let me make it simple for you. In the case of sale, it affects a general property in goods to the buyer. In other words, it creates a jus in rem or rights against the whole world. As a result, if the seller refuses to deliver goods, the buyer may sue for goods. If the seller resells the goods, the buyer can recover them from the second buyer. But in an agreement to sell, there is no transfer of property. Therefore, it gives either party a remedy against the other person in case of default. It creates a jus in personam, that is, remedy against a particular person only. The next distinction is about breach of contract by buyer. In a sale, if the buyer fails to pay the price for the goods, or if there is a breach of contract by the buyer, the seller can sue for the price, even though the goods are still in his possession. In an agreement to sell, if there is a breach of contract by the buyer, the seller can only sue for damages and not for the price, even if goods are in the possession of the buyer. The next distinction is about the right to resell. In a sale, the seller cannot resell the goods if he is keeping possession of the goods. If he does so, the second buyer does not get a good title. But in an agreement to sell, in case of resale by the seller, the second buyer gets a good title provided he buys in good faith. The first buyer can only sue the seller for damages. The next distinction is about the insolvency of the buyer. In a sale, if the buyer becomes insolvent before paying the price, the seller can get only a rateable dividend from the buyer's estate towards the price. But in an agreement to sell, if the buyer becomes insolvent before paying the price, the seller is not bound to part with the goods. The last distinction is about the insolvency of the seller. In a sale, if the seller becomes insolvent, the buyer can recover the goods from the official receiver. But in an agreement to sell, if the buyer has already paid the price and the seller has become insolvent, the former can only claim a rateable dividend from the latter's estate and not the goods. Now, the next topic we have to discuss in this module is about the types of goods. We can divide the types of goods into three: existing goods, future goods, and contingent goods. Now, let us understand the differences between the types of goods. Goods which are physically in existence and which are in seller's ownership or possession at the time of entering the contract of sale are called existing or specific goods. Only existing goods can be the subject of a sale. Can you guess some examples? It is not difficult. If we go to a supermarket to buy things, we select the items to purchase from the existing goods offered for sale. This is an example for existing goods. Existing goods can be divided into three, that are specific goods, unascertained goods, and ascertained goods. Specific goods are goods which are identified and agreed upon at the time of entering into a contract of sale. If Mr. A agrees to sell her flat to Mr. B, it's a sale of specific good. The goods which are not identified and ascertained at the time of sale, then goods are unascertained goods. They are defined by description only and may form a part of a lot. For example, if Mr. A agrees to sell 10 cars from his 20 cars, goods are unascertained till 10 cars are separated from the lot. The last classification is ascertained goods. The goods which are ascertained or identified subsequent to the formation of the contract are called ascertained goods. So the goods which are unascertained at the time of contract of sale will become ascertained when it becomes agreed upon between the parties. Can you give an example based on our previous example for unascertained goods? I know that it's easy for you. Let me make it clear. If the parties have identified the 10 cars from the 20 cars offered for sale, it becomes ascertained goods. Future goods are goods which are yet to be manufactured or acquired or produced by the seller after entering into the contract of sale. There cannot be a sale of future goods. It is always an agreement to sell because ownership cannot be transferred before the goods are produced. Can you give me examples? It is not difficult. For example, if you want to buy an iPhone 13, you go to a dealer and pay some advance money so that he can give you the item which he is able to arrange it from a dealer or manufacturer. In the case of contingent goods, acquisition of goods by the seller depends upon a contingency which may or may not happen. This contract will be enforceable only if the event on which the performance of the contract has happened. For example, a car dealer is entering into a contract to sell an imported car if he is able to buy it from the present owner living in a foreign country. Thus, contracts for contingent goods are agreements to sell. I hope that you got the differences between the three types of goods which we learned in Sale of Goods Act 1930. Our learning wouldn't be complete if we don't assess what we have learned. So here I am giving you one simple activity for you. Give examples of all three types of goods. Now that we have reached the end of this lesson, I hope that you have learned the basic features of Sale of Goods Act 1930, the essential conditions of Sale of Goods Act, distinction between sale and agreement to sale, and types of goods in this classification and in types of goods with its classifications. Hope you got a good insight on the topics we discussed in this module. To conclude this module, this is the first video lesson from chapter 3, that is the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Now we have 3 more video lessons from this chapter, that are conditions and warranties, rights of an unpaid seller, and duties of buyer. Until we meet again, bye, thank you.